Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Erica and today we are going to do my May mid-month wrap up. So I actually did not film an April end of month wrap up because I had only read a couple of books. So I figured I would just wait and do a bigger wrap up. And here we are, ready to do that. So this is mostly fantasy romance because that has just been what I've been feeling lately. And I have a few books to talk to you about. So let's jump into it. So the first book that I read in the middle of April was A Strange Hymn by Laura Thalassa. This is the second book in the Barkener series. The first one is Rhapsodic, and I gave this 4 stars. I'm not going to tell you what this one's about because it is a sequel, but I will say that I liked the way the romance developed and went in this sequel, and also I enjoyed the mystery aspect of it. It is a fantasy romance, but there is a little bit of a mystery plot going on, so I really enjoyed that aspect of it as well. The first book, Rhapsodic, is about a girl named Callie who is a siren, and she, when she's really young, kills her stepfather, and she makes a deal with this being called the Bargainer, who, if you call to him, you can get a favor for him, but then you owe him a favor in return. So she gets a favor from him, and then she keeps calling on him over and over and over again. And she's racked up a lot of debts. And he comes to collect them from her. And it is a fantasy romance, like I said, so it goes from there. There's a little bit of a mystery aspect in the series. And yeah, I just really enjoy this series so far. I really like Laura Thalassa's writing, and I've had a fun time, so I can't wait to continue on in the series. If I didn't say it already, I give it 4 stars. Next, I read my favorite book of the year so far, and I'm just in love, and that is The Serpents and the Wings of Night. This book, I just could not stop reading it. I could not put it down. It is entirely bingeable, and I'm obsessed. So, it's 5 stars. If you don't know what this book is about, this book is set in a vampire world, and our main character is rescued and adopted by the vampire king in this world. And so she is a human, and she is raised by the vampires, and she's always known that she is very vulnerable in this world, obviously. And she goes and participates in these trials, and it's basically like fight to the death. It's very Hunger Games style, but vampires. Whoever wins the trials gets one wish from the goddess Nyaxia. So she obviously wants to win the trials, and then she ends up teaming up with somebody that she doesn't get along with very well. It is an enemies to lovers romance, and the romance in here is just so good. It is slow burn, but Araya is awesome. I think she's one of my favorite female characters I've read in a fantasy romance before because she's such an underdog, but she's still badass, and I just love her. And I love the relationship that she built throughout the series with Rain, who is our love interest, and it was definitely really like enemies to lovers, and I ate it up. I love it. I love Krista Robin's writing. I feel like her world building in this is extremely easy to understand, and yeah, it's definitely my favorite book I've read of the year so far, and I'm just in love. So then I read the novella, which is 6 Scorch Roses by Krista Brabant. This is a standalone novella that's set in the same world. So this follows 2 different characters, Vale and Lilith. And Lilith is somewhat of like a doctor scientist, and her whole village is diseased, and it's killing everybody in the village. And she goes to Vale, who is a vampire, and makes a bargain with him that she will give him 6 special roses each time she visits if he will give her some of his blood, because she is trying to come up with a cure to save her village. And then it turns into a romance. And this is a novella, like I said, it's under 200 pages, and this felt like a full-length novel. It did not skimp on character development. It did not skip on the romantic development. It did not skimp on any of the plot. It was amazing, and I've never liked a novella as much as I've liked this. So Carissa Broadbent is just a goddess, and I love her so much. I love this series so much. Next, I did a try a chapter vlog where I tried a chapter of 3 different fantasy romance books, and I ended up picking The Dark King, this is so shiny, by Gina L. Maxwell. And this is basically, it says on the cover, Neon Gods meets 50 Shades of Grey. And I would kind of agree with that. I feel like it is a fantasy romance, 50 Shades of Grey. I did not know that comparison going into it, and I don't love BDSM in my books. That was one of the reasons why this didn't really work for me. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Another reason why this didn't really work for me is because I didn't really feel like their romance was developed very much. It felt like they just had a sexual relationship, and I didn't really see their connection or chemistry at all. And also the fantasy romance plot, which I will tell you in a minute what the synopsis of this book is, but the fantasy romance plot of this was so interesting and cool, and it pretty much went nowhere, and that was definitely a downer because, like I said, the premise of this book was really cool, and it did not deliver. So, this book is about a girl who wins a free trip to Vegas, and she just lost her job, so she's like, screw it, I'm gonna go, it's a free trip. She goes to Vegas, and then we have Caden, I think his name is. Yeah, Caden, who is king of the night court for fairies, and they have been banished from the fairy world, and they are now in Vegas. And the reason why they were is because they, one of the courts did something to the other court. I can't really remember, but basically they have a curse that if a fae gets married to another fae, they will, I think it's actually just royalty, but anyways, if they get married to another one, they will die as soon as they are away from that other person. And this just makes them more vulnerable because there's 2 people. If they kill the person's wife, the king will die. You get what I'm saying? So, our main character, Bryn, goes to Vegas, and she's at Caden's hotel, actually, and she meets Caden, and they hit it off one night. They have, like, a one-night stand, and then they wake up the next morning, realize that they got married in Vegas, and they're both pissed off at each other. Caden's pissed off, and he leaves and is basically like, I'll figure out how to get the divorce going, and then he starts to die, and he doesn't really realize why that's happening, but then he thinks that Bryn is a fae. Bryn thinks she's human, and it kind of goes from there. Like I said, there's BDSM in this. There's a captor-captive trope. And yeah, it just didn't really work for me for the reasons that I talked about earlier. But I think that if you're someone who likes 50 Shades of Grey, who likes BDSM, and maybe new to fantasy, that you would like this. I don't think it's a bad book. I just don't think it's a book for me. So I gave it 3 stars. Buddy read Mile High. This was the first book I read in May, and I buddy read it with Victoria and Autumn, and I will link their channels down below. We do a buddy read every month, and this month was Victoria's pick, so I've been wanting to read Mile High forever, so I was so glad that she picked this one, and the audiobook just came out, so it was perfect timing. And yes, so if you don't know what this is about, it is a sports romance, and it is about a flight attendant on a team jet for a hockey team, and a hockey player. So Stevie is the flight attendant, and Xander, who is the hockey player, they meet on the plane. Xander gives Stevie a little bit of a hard time because he thinks that she's attractive, but she's very standoffish towards him, and it's like, you're not gonna get to me, like, I know your reputation. He has a pretty bad reputation of being a playboy and a party boy and all of that. So she's like, no, and that intrigues him, so he starts pursuing her. And it's a slow burn, but it is very, very good. Xander's is swoony. Like, he's not actually what people think he is. There's a lot more to him to that. And watching that kind of play out was fun. And yeah, this book I gave 4.5 stars. The only reason why this wasn't a 5-star for me was because I feel like it was too long, and it definitely got dragged out a little bit. The third act conflict was definitely dragged out, and I feel like it could have been cut down quite a bit. But overall, it was a really, really great story, and I cannot wait to read Right Move because I love Stevie's brother, and that's who that book follows. So definitely looking forward to getting to that one. Then I continued on with the Nyaxia series, and I read The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. So this takes place right after the first one, The Serpents and the Wings of Night, and that book left off on quite a cliffhanger. So this book, picking it up, it was a little bit of a different speed and a little bit different and a little bit more political, which I've already talked about that I don't love that. But I will say that the politics in here were pretty mild, easy to understand, and it wasn't the majority of the book. So I was able to get through it, but I will say it took me like 200 pages to get back into the story, I feel like. But once and once things started to move forward a little bit, I really, really loved it. I loved the way that Rain and Orea's relationship wrapped up and everything that happened in here. It was a really, really great conclusion to their story. There will be 4 more books in the series total, but following different couples. And yeah, so this wrapped up their story and I loved it. It was great. Like I said, I just had a little bit of an issue with the beginning of it, but overall, really good. I give it 4.5 stars. After that, I read Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is a spin-off series to the Caraval series, which I read a couple of months ago and I really, really enjoyed and thought it was fun. This takes place in the same world, following a character that we met in that one, and I thought it was a lot of fun. This is about Evangeline, who goes to Jax, the Prince of Hearts, and tries to make a deal with him because the man that she loves is engaged to marry somebody else. So she makes a deal with Jax, and little does she know that was not a good idea because Jax has bargained with her that he would stop the wedding and she has to give him 3 kisses to 3 different men that he chooses. So he stops the wedding, and then Evangeline owns Jax all of these kisses, and it goes from there. I do think I didn't love this one as much as I loved the Caraval series. I think Evangeline was just kind of a wet blanket character, to be honest. Like, she didn't have much of a personality. She didn't really have much character growth in here. There wasn't that much romance like I was hoping for. But I think it was a good setup to the story, and it was fun and a good time, and I love being in this world. So I give it 3.5 stars. Then I read the second book, which is The Ballad of Never After, and this is just the continuation from that, and I gave this one 5 stars. This book is so, so good. It starts off right where Once Upon a Broken Heart leaves off, and we get a lot more relationship development in here. A lot of just like small, tender moments that really made this for me. Evangeline definitely has some character growth in here, and that was fun to see, and I just like where the plot is going in here. The plot in this one, I feel like I just didn't really care about. And then it is continued on in here, but I just started to care about it more. It felt more high stakes and it went a little bit further. So yeah, I definitely loved this one. It is such a cute romance and I love Jax so much and it's everything. So I'm excited for the third one to come out. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I have been having such a good time reading all of these fantasy romances. I've just been loving it. And I can't wait to come back and tell you about the rest of the books I read this month. So I hope you have a good rest of your month, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.